Wampum beads are more than just beautiful objects. They are small, cylindrical beads made from seashells. The white beads come from the whelk shell, while the purple beads come from the quahog clam. Indigenous peoples, especially those in the eastern woodlands, have made and used wampum for centuries. The process of making a single bead was long and difficult. It required great skill to cut, drill, and polish the fragile shells without breaking them. This careful work made each bead very valuable. The beads were then woven into intricate belts or strings. These beads held deep meaning within indigenous communities. They were not money in the way Europeans understood it. Instead, they were used in diplomacy and ceremony. Wampum belts recorded treaties, historical events, and important agreements between nations. When leaders met, they would exchange wampum as a sign of their serious intentions and to make their words permanent. The patterns and colors on the belts told stories and conveyed messages. Holding a wampum belt while speaking meant that your words were true and bound by honor. It was a sacred and powerful form of communication. The value of wampum was rooted in its spiritual and political importance. The shells themselves were seen as a gift from the Creator. The white beads often symbolized peace, purity, and light. The purple beads could represent more serious matters like war, sorrow, or great political importance. Wampum strings could be used for official invitations or as credentials for messengers. They were also used in condolence ceremonies to comfort grieving families and restore balance to a community. The beads connected people to their history, their laws, and each other in a profound way. When Europeans arrived in North America, they quickly learned about the importance of wampum. They saw how indigenous peoples used it to seal alliances and trade agreements. Soon Europeans began to use wampum in their own dealings with indigenous nations. They also started to use it as a form of currency for trading goods like furs. This changed the role of wampum, but it never lost its original, deeper meaning for indigenous peoples. It remained a powerful symbol of their sovereignty, their history, and their traditions, a legacy that continues to this day. In a recent excavation season at the colony of Avalon in Newfoundland, archaeologists made a remarkable find. While carefully sifting through soil from a waterfront area dating back to the early 17th century, they uncovered 7 tiny yet significant artifacts. These were wampum beads. 6 of the beads were white, crafted from the inner spiral of the whelk shell. 1 was a deep purple, made from the valuable quahog clam. Finding even 1 bead would have been exciting, but finding 7 together suggests a story waiting to be told. The beads are a direct link to the indigenous peoples who lived on or visited this land. This discovery is incredibly important for several reasons. First, wampum is very rare in Newfoundland's archaeological record. These beads are physical proof of interaction between the European settlers at Avalon and the indigenous peoples of the region, most likely the Beothuk. The presence of wampum shows that the relationship was not just about conflict or avoidance. It involved diplomacy, trade, or communication, all of which are represented by the beads. It challenges simpler stories of how these two groups of people met and lived alongside one another during those early years of contact. The location where the beads were found is also significant. They were discovered near the water's edge, in an area that was a center of activity in the 1620s. This was a place where goods were loaded and unloaded from ships, and where people gathered. Did a Beothuk leader present these beads to a colonist? Were they part of a trade for European goods like metal tools or cloth? Or were they perhaps lost during an exchange? We may never know the exact story, but their presence in this specific spot opens up many new questions for researchers to explore about daily life at the colony. For the archaeologists at Avalon, these 7 small beads are a monumental find. They provide a tangible connection to a past that is often known only through biased European documents. Written records from this time often ignored or misunderstood indigenous perspectives. Artifacts like wampum speak for themselves. They offer a silent but powerful testament to the presence and influence of indigenous peoples at one of North America's earliest English colonies. This discovery helps us build a more complete and accurate picture of our shared history, one that includes all the people who shaped it. The colony of Avalon was established in 1621. Its founder was an English nobleman named George Calvert, the first Lord Baltimore. Calvert had a grand vision for his colony in the New World. He wanted to create a successful and permanent settlement that would bring him wealth from the rich fishing grounds of Newfoundland. But he also had another, more personal goal. Calvert was a Catholic, and Catholics faced persecution in England at the time. He imagined Avalon as a place of religious tolerance, where people of different Christian faiths could live together in peace. This was a very progressive idea for the 17th century. Calvert invested a huge amount of his own money into the project. He sent settlers and supplies across the Atlantic Ocean. They built substantial stone houses, a forge for making tools, a brew house, and strong defensive walls to protect the settlement. Unlike many other early colonies that were temporary fishing stations, Avalon was designed to be a year-round home. Calvert himself even lived at Avalon with his family for a short time, between 1628 and 1629. He wanted to personally oversee his ambitious project and ensure that his vision of a tolerant and prosperous society would become a reality. However, the reality of life in Newfoundland was much harder than Calvert had imagined. The winters were brutally cold and long. The settlers suffered from disease, and growing enough food on the rocky soil was a constant struggle. The colony was also attacked by French privateers, adding to their difficulties. After experiencing one particularly harsh winter, Calvert wrote that the land was not suitable for a colony. He decided to abandon Avalon and seek a new land grant in a warmer climate to the south. This eventually led his family to found the colony of Maryland. Even though Calvert left, the settlement at Avalon did not disappear completely. Some settlers remained, and the area continued to be an important center for the fishery for centuries. The original colony was eventually buried and forgotten. It was not until the 1980s that archaeologists rediscovered the site. Since then, ongoing excavations have slowly revealed the remains of Calvert's ambitious 17th century settlement. The discovery of the colony is just as important as the artifacts found within it, as it helps us understand the dreams and struggles of the first European settlers. The wampum beads are not the only important artifacts found at the colony of Avalon. Over the years, archaeologists have uncovered more than 2 million items. Each one provides a small clue about what life was like almost 400 years ago. They have found everyday objects like clay pipes for smoking tobacco, pottery from England and Spain, and glass bottles for wine. These items show that the settlers tried to maintain a European lifestyle, even though they were thousands of miles from home. They tell us about the colonists' daily habits, their trade connections, and the small comforts they enjoyed. Other discoveries speak to the hard work and industry of the colony. Archaeologists have found the remains of a blacksmith's forge, complete with tools and scraps of metal. This shows that the settlers were not just importing everything they needed. They were also skilled craftspeople making and repairing their own equipment. They have also found thousands of fish hooks and lead weights used for fishing lines, reminding us that the cod fishery was the main reason the colony existed. These finds paint a vivid picture of a busy and self-sufficient community working hard to survive and prosper. Together, these artifacts help us understand the complex world of 17th century Avalon. The European pottery and the indigenous wampum beads were found in the same soil. This shows that these two very different worlds were not separate. They were connected. The settlers and the Beothuk people met, traded, and negotiated their existence on the same land. The archaeological evidence allows us to see these connections in a way that written documents alone cannot. It provides a more balanced story that acknowledges the presence and importance of all the people who lived there. Learning about this history matters today. The discoveries at Avalon remind us that our past is complicated and is made up of many different stories. By studying these artifacts, we learn to appreciate the challenges faced by early settlers and the rich cultures of the indigenous peoples who were already here. This knowledge helps us build a more inclusive understanding of our history. It encourages us to ask questions, to look for hidden stories, and to recognize that the interactions that happened centuries ago continue to shape the world we live in today.